Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmersday, November 17th, 2025. On the show today, in news, multimodal transportation. In listener questions, Dwarfgate and Tablegate. Then in our main segment, Jim reminds us how Richard Nixon ended up saying, "I am not a crook," at Disney's contemporary resort. Let's get started by bringing in the man tired of hearing complaints about the cost of Thanksgiving dinner, like $30 turkeys and $10 slices of pie. Look, the prices were posted on his front door before you came in the house, so that's on you. Please welcome Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It is going well, Len. And yes, this is that time of year where those of us who work in the kitchen get a little testy. Yeah. That said, though, it is worth noting, you mentioned the $30 turkey. If we go all the way back to 1621, to the first Thanksgiving, the menu included venison, wildfowl, which, by the way, not turkey. Rather no. Duck and goose. And then the part I love is they had lobster because they were right down by the water, but the Pilgrims hated lobster. They actually, if you were an indentured servant, they made you eat lobster because it was thought of as a lesser food. Like, here, eat your lobster and shut up.
Was it Mystic Pizza that had that scene where it's like the lobster fishermen were eating lobster every day and just sick of it? And then Julia Roberts goes to a fancy dinner and they're serving lobster there.
You're right.
It was a Julia Roberts movie. Was it Mystic Pizza?
It was Mystic Pizza. In fact, that's what put her on the map before Pretty Woman. But yeah, turkey was not on the menu because turkeys back then were fast and lean and hard to catch. We had to domesticate them and turn them into the butterballs we love today so we could actually catch them and eat them.
We had to domesticate them to make them fat, like spouses.
There we go. That's it exactly.
We got them comfortable Barca loungers. We brought them cable, and things went from there, naturally.
There we go. And it's got a drink holder. Look right there. Just sit. Enjoy.
Look, you're happy right here. Just do it. All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Amsterdad, Andrew Wartain, Arno Lubinage, Asticot, Bill Scurry, and Billy the Kid. Jim, these are Disney's popcorn bucket engineers testing a new Tron-themed design for the parks. They say focus groups love the new color-changing popcorn bucket lid LED display, and the new popcorn flavor does indeed taste like Team Blue. The next step is to launch the popcorn into guest mounts at 60 miles an hour for the full ride experience, and dental insurance will be provided to volunteers. True story.
Ooh, okay. I may have to seek this out when we're in the park next week.
You remember Leon Spinks, don't you, Jim?
There we go. Right. Lovely man. Kind of an interesting, set of teeth, but a lovely man. So.
Fantastic. All right, on to the news, folks. And the Disney Dish News is sponsored by UnlockedMagic.com from our friends at DVCRentalStore.com. Jim, the holidays are a perfect time to visit UnlockedMagic.com to find regular Disney theme park tickets and special event tickets with 10% off. Things like the Very Merry Christmas Party and Jollywood Nights. All of the November Christmas parties are now sold out, and Jim, I believe Jollywood is selling like hotcakes.
Wow.
So visit unlockmagic.com right now to save big on your admission this winter.
Okay.
All right, Jim, a couple of bits of news from Walt Disney World. Did you see that Disney has expanded its airport luggage transfer service to include Southwest Airlines arrivals? Previously, it was just departures, but now it's inbound and outbound luggage transfer for domestic flights for the value resorts. So if you're flying Southwest and you're staying at All Star or Pop Century or Art of Animation, you can register 30 days before your trip to get luggage tags. Then when you check into your flight at home, pay the bag fees before heading to the airport, make sure those luggage tags are on, drop your bags at Southwest, and then when you land in Orlando, MCO, go directly to your resort, and your luggage will be delivered to your resort within 4 hours.
Wow.
And then on the way home, same thing. Check into your flight first and check your bags online. Pay whatever fees you need to pay. Then drop your bags off at your resort's luggage assistance desk in the lobby. And then go to the airport. Take your flight. And your bags will be at bag claim at your final destination.
That is crazy. Wow.
Sounds a lot like the luggage part of Magical Express, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Though, interesting bit of history in regard to that. Mr. Schul, our partner in crime over on Patreon, and I were just talking about this earlier this week. And the original iteration of the Magical Express was supposed to be that you literally hand your bag off at your departure point. I mean, in my case, Manchester Airport. And you never see it again until you get to your resort. And it was the airlines themselves said, no, that for safety reasons, that will not work. They have to claim it when they get to Orlando. And once they bring it to the bus, absolutely, we'll get it to the resort. But, it was a deal breaker back in the day you hand it off, where you start your trip. And then it magically, because it's the Magical Express, makes its way to your hotel.
Yeah. So I'm sure that the people who are dropping off the bags are getting ID'd as they're dropping off the bags. I mean, that's just standard operating procedures at airports. So we know who it is. Mm-hmm. It's the getting the luggage to and from the resorts without the guests having to touch it.
Yeah.
I think that's the tricky part. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also, so I haven't used this yet because I haven't flown Southwest and stayed at a value resort. But I'm guessing you have to go to Bell Services or call Bell Services to have it brought up. Like, it's not actually going directly into your room. It's going to the resort. Is that right?
Yeah. And that was the vision initially when they were putting together the Magical Express program. And, there's, what you want and what you can actually deliver on. I mean, such is life.
Other big bit of news from last week. On Thursday, Disney had its earnings call for its fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025 and also for the entire wrap-up for fiscal year 2025. Big news out of there, Jim. Domestic park attendance was down for the entire year 1%, according to the 10K that Disney filed with the SEC. Now, the 10K is the annual report. There are also these things called 10Qs, which are the quarterly reports. And here's where I want to go with this. So domestic attendance was down 1% for the year. If you go back and look at the 10Q, the quarterly reports for the year before this, attendance was flat in the third quarter, up 2% in Q2 and down 2% in Q1. There were some hurricanes there. But Disney's 10Qs say this, quote, experiences revenues, this is parks, fluctuate with changes in theme park attendance and resort occupancy resulting from the seasonal nature of vacation travel and leisure activities, which generally results in higher revenue during the company's first and fourth fiscal quarters. So Q1 and Q4 are high, Q2 and Q3 are less, right? So more people visit in Q1 and Q4 than in Q2 and Q3. Okay, so the question that I had was, if attendance was down 1% for the entire year, and it was flat in the third quarter, it was up 2% in the second quarter, it was down 2% in the first quarter, what was attendance in the fourth quarter? Because Disney didn't call that out specifically, right? And if you do the math, and I've done the math, based on like the TEA attendance numbers for 2024, the number that I keep landing on is that the fourth quarter, so the last 3 months, domestic attendance was down 4%.
Okay.
And that's a fairly big number for one quarter. So remember, this is July, August, and September of 2025, right? And that's interesting too, because for those 3 months in Orlando, Orange County has reported record tourist tax revenue for each of those months. So on the one hand, Orlando was reporting like plus 10%, plus 11%, and plus 1% for tax revenue, but attendance was down. Now, granted, Disney did say Parks and Experience profits were up 9% to just under $1 billion, and revenue was up 5%. But even if you look at like fewer people coming and we're just charging them more, that's not even keeping pace with tax revenue.
No. And, worth pointing out here, we've discussed on recent editions of Disney, just those surveys that Disney has been sending out about, consumer confidence, that how are you feeling right now? And how, are you thinking of traveling down here in the future? I mean, they are, for lack of a better term, they're paying attention to the canary in the coal mine. And that 4% dip for the past 3 months months. That's concerning. Wow.
Yeah. So what I did for that is I weighted Q1 and Q4 to be higher attendance than Q2 and Q3 because that's what Disney says it is, right? So I divided that 76 million and change, like 30% for Q1 and Q4, 20% each for Q2 and Q3. I mean, we can change those numbers, but I don't know that it necessarily makes a difference in the weighting. Yeah. So that was really surprising to me. And the other thing to watch out for, so their fiscal year begins October 1. It's November. October and November had the government shutdown. You've seen all the canceled flights that have been going on for the last couple of weeks. So it's making it harder for people to get to Orlando.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Q1's going to be challenging for them too, I suspect.
Okay. Well, we will pay attention to it and sort of read the tea leaves, so to speak.
Right. So good news is international park attendance was up. And then for fiscal year 2026, Disney expects to spend $9 billion in CapEx projects. That's new stuff. And also spend $7 billion buying shares back. Fair. Okay. Other bits of news, the Poly Island Towers Wailulu Bar and Grill will start on December 3rd, taking reservations for dining starting December 4th. So that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be nice to, and that's a fabulous place to have dinner.
Okay. I'm hoping that because you can get reservations there, I can finally get into the tiki bar next door, just
into Trader Sam's.
There we go. Yeah, finally. I want to get in off of the patio. I'm just saying.
Exactly. And then speaking of new restaurant stuff, the Grand Floridian's old Garden View Tea Room is going to reopen in early 2026 with a new tea experience and a new name, the Garden View Lounge. Jim, I love an afternoon tea, and this was a great experience in the Grand Floridian. It's one of the better ones I've had outside the UK, so I'm looking forward to this.
I have to admit, I've done it once or twice, and if you like teeny tiny sandwiches, it's a fun experience. Yes.
I do. All right. Last bit of Disney-related news. After 35 years, Jim, the rights to Roger Rabbit have reverted to his creator, Gary Wolfe, who's actively working on sequels, including Jessica Rabbit, Xerious Business. That's Xerious with an X.
Okay.
Gary doesn't think Disney's interested, but Jim, you have to think some studio somewhere is going to take a chance on this, right?
Well, I'm face it, we live in a world now where if you think about the number of streaming services and that sort of thing that are, looking for safe bets, a Roger Rabbit project, even something that just has Jessica Rabbit in the title would make you tune in at least once. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see if somebody actually bites on this. So, but 35 years, really?
Yeah, 35 years. Yeah, the copyright reverts after 35 years. It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Over at Universal, Jim, two interesting pieces of information. First one is former Universal exec Jay Stein passed away last week.
Yeah.
And he was responsible for Universal's expansion to Orlando in 1990. He retired in 1993, and he's in the IAPA Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. He is. And by the way, there's a wonderful book that Jay co-authored called Jay Bangs that looks back at his career at Universal. And what's lovely about Mr. Stein's book is he doesn't pull any punches. All of those people who say, well, Michael Eisner allegedly, was in the meeting where we talked about our plans for Universal, and Jay was like, he was across the table. We met in the Frank Webb building.
He wore scarlet. I remember well.
Yeah, it was like, he did not pull any punches. Yeah, great guy. So.
All right. The other bit of news, Jim, is this. Universal Orlando is exploring building a 4 to 5 mile transportation system in 3 phases that would link Epic Universe and its nearby hotels, Universal Studios, City Walk, and iDrive, with Hard Rock and the surrounding retail areas as well. So an RFQ went out in August. So this is requests for qualifications for people to do this. The state district, the improvement district that Universal is in, says it's a design, build, and operate request with a 25-year operating timeline. So they're looking long-term for this, Jim.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. The stories coming out of Universal, whether it's, I think we talked on this podcast about how, they're operating the endless summer resorts at a loss for 7 years because the notion of we're in this for the long game, something like that. A transportation system, linking all of those. Wow.
Yeah, I put a link to the RFQ in the show notes, and I actually asked the district manager for a copy of the RFQ. So we'll see what happens there. Apparently, they got a couple of responses from vendors interested in doing it. So the news article that I read in this said it could include tunnel boring. I don't know that we have the water table for that in Central Florida, but okay.
All right. Paging Elon Musk.
Exactly. All right. On to listener questions, and we've got a bunch, Jim. Here's one from Adam, and he's actually got two questions. He says, first, how early should I start standing in line for standby seats for Epcot's Candlelight Processional? And the second question is this, like the listener from 2 weeks ago asking about Epcot After Hours, we're doing both Christmas parties the first weekend of December. We're also hoping to do some resort hopping during the day since it may not be warm enough to visit the pool or water parks. We're thinking about visiting Wilderness Lodge before the Christmas party since we've not visited there before. Do you have any thoughts? All right. So first question about Candlelight Processional. So if it's a really popular Candlelight Processional narrator like Neil Patrick Harris in years past, I don't think he's doing it this year. Jim, people have started lining up basically when the park opens for Neil Patrick Harris, right? It's a multi-hour commitment.
Yeah. And one has to ask, you're in a theme park with so many shows and so many rides and so many attractions. Is that really a good return on the investment of your time?
Yeah, you have to be there for that, and that's all you're going to do that one day, I think. For other narrators, you've got more flexibility. I'll also say this: if you don't need a seat, if you're okay standing and listening. Anywhere around the United States Pavilion, the American Adventure is going to be fine. You'll be able to see and hear a lot of things. You'll be able to hear everything great. You'll be able to see some of it. But you can definitely stand in the area because the projection system, the PA system is very, very good.
True. And if you're clever about it, you could be having barbecue while you're enjoying this.
Exactly. And then as far as resort hopping goes, it's one of the great things in Walt Disney World. I wouldn't limit it to just daytime if you have a spare evening. The Wilderness Lodge is great because there's a lot to see. You might also consider walking the contemporary Grand Flow Poly Loop. So if you're staying on site and you're not staying at one of those resorts, Adam, take your Walt Disney World bus to the Magic Kingdom and then boat or bus to the Wilderness Lodge, and then do the same thing back to the Magic Kingdom, then go to the Contemporary, go to the Grand Flow, go to the Poly. The bonus there is there's a ton to see, especially at the holidays. You'll never be more than 5 minutes from a snack or a bathroom. That works great. The other thing I would do in terms of resort hopping, you could take a bus to Hollywood Studios and then Skyline to the Caribbean Beach, walk that in the Riviera, then take the Skyliner back to the studios. Again, you're never too far from food or bathrooms. I think I mentioned Laurel and I did this this past weekend, and it was lovely. We did it at night. So there's plenty of resort hopping and walking that you can do.
Just a quick question here. So did you, in fact, get into the Grand Flow during this latest visit to the resort, or?
No, but we'll go this weekend. You and I are there. So
okay. I mean, I have to admit, I'm just kind of intrigued about the new Birdcage bar and what's the ripple effect there between the placement of the gingerbread house and the tree.
Yeah, we're going vertical inside the lobby. I want to see it in person before I pass judgment on it, and I'm excited to see how the new tea lounge is coming along too. So we'll look.
Okay.
We'll make a trip over there this weekend.
Okay, cool.
All right. Here's an email from Mary who says, I'm headed to Orlando in December and I'm trying to get a reservation for 2 for the Candlelight Processional. In doing this, I've noticed a few things. 1, reservations for 2 are nearly impossible to get. Reservations for 3 are almost always present. I've toggled the search up to a party of 16, and somehow that's more readily available than a party of 2. My assumption is that there's a limited number of 2 tops at Disney, or perhaps they also want to save a specific amount for larger parties, which makes sense. In the rare instances I'm able to find a table for a party of 2, if I refresh MDE, it disappears. Then mysteriously the same dining times are moved over to groups with a party of 3. My gut tells me this is a money grab, but there's no negative November. So let's assume it's an IT glitch. Thank you, Mary. Yeah. And then Beer Garden seems to not have any space for parties of 2. It always space for parties of 3 and 5. With the communal seating, why is it like that? What, does it 2 + 3 = 5? Yes. Okay. So I love this, and I responded to Mary, but I was able to pull through the MDE data feed all of the availability for every party size for Beer Garden for the next few days. So I put in a chart in the show notes for each party. So each party size is a column. And then each row is a different availability, and that's in there. So a couple of interesting things there. There does seem to be, to Mary's point, groups of table that are packed together. So if you look at the available dining times for groups of 5, 6, 7, and 8, they are exactly the same. And then the groups for 9 and 10 availability, exactly the same, like down to the minute they're available. So it seems there are 3 groups of tables, if you will, at Beer Garden: 4 or fewer, 5 to 8, and then 9 and 10. And 10 is as far as I got. The interesting thing is this. If you look at the available times for parties of 1, in this particular data poll that I did, it was 1:10 p.m. and 4:40 p.m. But those reservation times don't appear for any other party size. So there's no table for anywhere between 2 and 10 people available at 1:10 p.m. or 4:40 p.m. It's just for tables of 1. Also, there's more availability for parties of 4 than 3 and 3 than 2, which you'd also expect, but that all sit at a 4-top, or the 4-top half of an 8-top. So I really think this is Disney wanting to hold on to blocks of 4-tops because they know that's going to be the most common popular request. So by far the most dining reservations available are for parties of 4 or 4-tops. But the other interesting thing is this, and so this is where I start thinking about how the template system works in Disney dining. There's a party of 3 available on this one day at 4:45 p.m. That does not appear as a party of 4. So you can book a table for 3 at 4:45, but not a table for 4. So that means, Jim, I think that there's already a party of 1 booked at 4:45, and the party of 3 would be seated with them. So I would, this is the single diner line, if you will, for Beer Garden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's what I suspect. Yeah.
All right. So forgive me for asking, what's the workaround? I mean, do you, if you're 2 people trying to get lunch or dinner, do you book a table for 3 and explain that your friend Harvey will be along shortly? The big invisible rabbit.
There does seem to be some table of 2 availability, not as much as table of 3 or 4 when I looked. But you could always say table of 4 and then show up with 2 people, right? The penalty system for Disney is if you don't show up at all. But as long as one of you shows up, it's fine.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. So, I don't know that I would necessarily do that because that takes away from tables of 4. Try your regular feed first for 2 and then, do what you have to get the reservation.
Okay.
All right. Here's an email from Mike who says, we're a family of 4 from the UK with kids who are both now old enough to enjoy parts of the Food and Wine Festival. We're going to Walt Disney World in September 2026 with 14 nights at the Beach Club, followed by 4 nights at the Hard Rock Hotel for Universal Orlando. Because of the way park tickets are packaged in the UK, the best value means we have a 4-park, 14-day ticket for Universal, which will start halfway through our Beach Club stay. We want to get the most out of Epic Universe while keeping wait time to a minimum. Currently, the Express Pass that comes with our Hard Rock stay doesn't include Epic. Do you think this could change before next September? And if not, we're thinking about taking a day from our time at the Beach Club to visit Epic and then 1 more day using early entry when we're at the Hard Rock. Will this give us enough time to see and do everything, or should I throw more money at the problem and get the Express Pass? All right, Jim. So first question. Do you think Epic Universe will be included in complimentary Universal Express Pass by next September?
Okay, the wild card here is when is Volcano Bay down? Doesn't that go down for a lengthy rehab next year?
They haven't said when it's coming back. I would expect it to be down.
Okay. So that, as it's been explained to me from folks at the Universal Orlando Resort, is that's what's kind of tapping the brake about everything they're doing with Epic Universe because, face it, several thousand people a day were going into Volcano Bay, and those people have to go somewhere now.
Somewhere.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's just the feeling is they can't necessarily modify ratify, their policies in regard to getting into Epic Universe until Volcano Bay comes back up. So I just wish we had some more information about when that is exactly.
I agree. That's if they're going to do it, that would play into the decision to support Express Pass at Epic for their deluxe hotels. Here's the thing, though, right? Universal sees how Disney's making something approaching $1 billion a year on Lightning Lane.
Mm-hmm.
I am sure they want to move in that direction and stop giving out Express Pass for free.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the stuff that we heard in the last earnings call from Comcast mentioned that people who visit Epic Universe spend more time there, spend more money on merch, and spend more money on food. So getting them through the park faster would hurt all three of those three things.
Well, there you go. Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we're ever going to see Universal give out free Express Pass to Epic Universe, or even for new hotels. They might exclude it. You'll always get the early entry. So, Mike, I think your 2-day plan is great. Just remember, too, on the day that you're not a Universal Resort guest, a couple of things to keep in mind. Offsite guests might still be admitted to the early park admission part of the park to ride Harry Potter and the Battle of the Ministry during EPA. So they're doing that now. If they continue that into next year, do that as well. So it's the one big sort of like unannounced loophole in EPA. And this isn't on Universal's website, but it's definitely happening. We've done it in the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You can stay off site, show up for early park entry, get admitted to Battle of the Ministry and ride that. Okay. You can also then, once you do that, you can line up for when Isle of Berk opens with the rest of the park and knock out things in that land, like meeting Toothless and riding the rides there. You can also consider seeing the shows on your non-resort day. You might even be able to fit in a nice midday break. So then on your early admission day, you don't need to go to Battle of the Ministry. You can rope drop Super Nintendo World and then Dark Universe, take a midday break and come back and re-ride or pick up anything you haven't seen. So if you're breaking it up over 2 days, that's how I would do it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Last question is from Matt. He says, I watched the parades and fireworks for the first Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party on November 7th. At first glance, I noticed there were only 6 dwarfs in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went back and watched the parade again and again using different videos from different sources online. And I still only see 6 dwarfs, not 7, every time. I'm embarrassed at how much research I've done on Dwarfgate, but that's another story. Unless I'm missing something, why would Disney do a parade with only 6 of the 7 dwarfs? I can understand a random performer not being replaced, but this seems unordinary and extremely noticeable. It's not like 3 of the Dalmatians ran away and they decided to go with 98. And the interesting thing here, Matt, is that the same week that we got your email, we also got an email from somebody in Disney Entertainment who said, yeah, there's a character performer shortage right now. Apparently some performers are on 6-day-a-week mandatory schedules just to get what's out there. And I think this is part of that. So, nobody's going to notice a 14% decline in dwarves.
Well, what's so funny about this is if you've seen the Festival of Fantasy parade, when they have the dwarves in that parade, they do, in fact, only have 6 dwarves because there's that costume where it's they replicate that scene from the actual Snow White movie where it's supposedly, I want to say, sneezy on the bottom of the costume, and then Dopey is riding on his shoulders. So there's a version of the dwarves that they can get away with 6 performers because one performer is actually playing 2 dwarves. So
there's a 2 dwarves in a trench coat contingency.
There we go. Yes. Yeah. So I'm kind of intrigued just by the notion of this is actually going on. Who doesn't know? I mean, if I know that, there've got to be employees going, we're down a dwarf. Go get the 2 for Zoom.
Go get the Burberry. We're down a dwarf.
Yeah.
If they do that, Jim, they could do like trench coat dwarf day.
There we go.
And have you could have 3 trench coats with 3 people representing 6 dwarves. And so you could actually get down to 4 performers and still, represent, quote, 7 dwarves.
Please don't put this in their brain land. Just...
Between you, Jim, me, and Matt, there's somebody in Disney Entertainment furiously scribbling out on a notepad right here what those trench coats would look like.
Oh,
and so they're sending an intern to the outlet malls.
Okay.
At this point.
Okay. And right behind that is the Jungle Book, totem pole, where, just we put Blue on top of, King Louie and Mowgli. And then there you go.
What other short in statue characters can we put up in trench coats?
There you go.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Dwarfgate. Love that too. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim tells us about Richard Nixon's I Am a Crook speech that happened at Disney's Contemporary Resort. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso. Gift magical mornings with Nespresso Virtuo Pop. Compact and stylish, Virtuo Pop is made to meet every morning coffee craving. From espresso to coffee, hot or iced, at the click of a button. And celebrate the season with Nespresso's limited edition coffee flavors. Sweet almond and hibiscus, cinnamon and candied tamarind, and festive double espresso. Magic in the making. Shop the holiday gift collection exclusively at Nespresso.com.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' upcoming comedy, Ella McKay. From Academy Award-winning writer-director James L. Brooks, Emma Mackey plays Ella McKay, an idealistic young woman who juggles family and work in a story about the people you love and how to survive them. Featuring an all-star cast including Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Lowden, Kumail Nanjiani, Io Adebri, Julie Kavner, with Albert Brooks and Woody Harrelson. Ella McKay, in theaters December 12.
If we knew more about our sleep, what would we do differently? Would we go to bed at a consistent time or take steps to reduce interruptions to our sleep? With the all-new Sleep Score, Apple Watch measures your bedtime consistency, interruptions, and sleep duration. Then, every morning it combines these factors into an easy-to-understand score from 1 to 100. So you'll know how to take the quality of your sleep from good to excellent. Introducing the new Sleep Score on Apple Watch. iPhone 11 or later required.
And we're back. All right, Jim.
Yes?
Richard Nixon, I Am Not a Crook.
Yes. The day this podcast goes live, November 17th, is actually, carried the 2, dropped the 4, the 52nd anniversary of when this happened. But before we get to that story, I want to talk a bit about the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Museum, which is in
Yorba Linda.
There we go. It's 18 miles away, a 19-minute drive from Disneyland. And by the way, this opened back in July of 1990. I visited this early on because, face it, Nixon, there used to be the joke that Nixon would show up if they opened an envelope at Disneyland. I mean, he loved the place.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, there's this great photo that was taken in the fall of 1955 where he's already the vice president of the United States, all right? But he's there because he's being presented with the key to Disneyland. And, on one side of him is C.V. Wood, the then president of Disneyland. The other side is Fess Parker. And, I mean, he looks starstruck. It's like, oh, boy, I'm getting the key. But anyway, Nixon Library and Museum is well worth a visit, folks. And I say that as somebody who's been to the Kennedy Presidential Museum. That's at the edge of Boston Harbor out in Columbia Point. Likewise, the Reagan Museum, I got out there when they had their Disney exhibit, and that's high on a hillside in Simi Valley land. In fact, I mean, if you look off in the distance, you can see the Pacific. There's amazing mountains, but this is the thing. It's both of those museums, the Kennedy and the Reagan, are set up with the notion of your takeaway is, he was a great man. Whereas the Nixon Library he's a man. In fact, they make this deliberate effort to make everything as accessible as possible. I mean, for example, there's a room in the museum where you get to watch the Kennedy-Nixon debates on television, And to make sure that you understand just what this was like back in the fall of 1960s, you turn a corner and it's, it's a TV room from the 1960s. The wood paneling, the big loud plaid couch,
beautiful,
the TV guide that's glued to the coffee table. I mean, and that I love. At one point, you get into a room and it's all the world leaders that Nixon ever dealt with in bronze. At their actual height, the actual scale. And first of all, Mao Zedong and Leonid Brezhnev both look as they were, they should have been sold at Build-A-Bear. I mean, that's how small and cute and cuddly they are.
Something that nobody's ever said about either of them in real life.
There we go.
All right. Jim, I've got to take a second here and acknowledge one of our listeners, Jason Schultz.
Yes!
Who is an archivist at the Nixon Library. He's also a huge Disney Parks fan. Mm-hmm. And I put a link to his website, Parkendium, in there, because he's obviously archiving media about the Disneyland park there, too. Yeah, so shout out to Jason. Great guy.
No, I've known Jason for years. Great guy. And more to the point, so many of the Disney-related things that the Nixon library are there because Jason dug them out. But anyway, back to the bronzes. Charles de Gaulle, on the other hand, Len, 6 foot 5 inches tall. I mean, you stand in that room and you're looking straight up his nose. I mean, it's just one of these things.
Well, I mean, he's Charles de Gaulle, so yeah.
He's Charles de Gaulle. All right.
Hello, sir. I love your airport. Okay, go ahead.
There we go. All right. So, let's get to this story about Nixon and I Am Not a Crook, which starts actually a year beforehand. It's 1972, and the Associated Press is looking for some place to hold its annual convention. This is where 400 editors who work at various newspapers around, the country, annually get together and talk shop. And one of the higher-ups in the organization said, hey, our travel guy just got back from Walt Disney World, and he says that the hotel that's right next to the Magic Kingdom has some pretty decent convention space. So why don't we hold our event there? And that way our families can, be over playing in the theme park while, we're complaining about the Printers Union.
Also, Jim, getting out of Detroit in November for Florida seems like a very, very smart move.
Absolutely. So, the powers that be, the Len pointed out, Associated Press thinks this is a great idea. So they book a block of rooms at the Contemporary Resort, not to mention booking space inside of this 15-story tall building for their annual convention. Now, important to understand here, folks, that convention center wasn't built till the early 1990s. In fact, this more than 90,000 square foot facility didn't kick open its doors till November of 1991. So in the 20 years prior to that facility opening next door to the Contemporary, if you were looking to book your annual convention at this Disney World Hotel, you had to book one of the 10 rooms that were available on the second floor of the structure, which is known as the Level of the Americas. This is where the Contemporary Resort's Convention Business Center was located, where, depending on the size of your group, you could either hold your meeting in the Yellowstone room, or the Gulf Coast room, or even the Great Smokies room. Whereas the Associated Press, given again, 400 editors are going to be attending, and they'll be bringing along their associate editors and support staff, they decided they were going to need the biggest room in the Contemporary's Convention Business Center, and that was the Ballroom of the Americas, which held 1,400 people and featured a stage with a hydraulic lift, not to mention a closed-circuit television system. Len, this was state-of-the-art for 72.
Oh, for the 70s? Yeah, sure. I love the hydraulic lift with the stage, because that means that you can do Cosmic Ray Starlight Cafe there. You could do Sunny Eclipse. Yeah, all right.
There we go.
All right.
And because, again, this gathering of editors, from 400 of America's biggest newspapers, would give the President of the United States a pretty big megaphone for whatever message that he might want to pass along to the American people at that time. Mm-hmm. The Associated Press, as a courtesy, Len, sends an invitation to the White House months in advance of when they're actually going to hold a convention down at Walt Disney World, which at this point is November of 1973. And Nixon says yes. Now, nobody knows by the time the Associated Press's annual convention is happening in the late fall of 73, the Nixon presidency will be embroiled in the Watergate scandal. In fact, to put this in sharp focus line here, October 20th was the day that Nixon ordered that then Attorney General Elliot Richardson fire Archibald Cox, the special prosecutor.
The Saturday Night Massacre, yeah.
There we go. And this, for a lot of folks, this is where you start to chart the beginning of the end of the Nixon presidency. That firing leads to a constitutional crisis, not to mention national calls for Nixon to resign. His approval rating falls to just 24%. And what's interesting is Nixon went to ground at this point in his presidency. He canceled most of his engagements that were planned for the month of November, except notably that trip to Walt Disney World to speak at the Associated Press at their annual convention on November 17th, because the Disney parks had long been Richard Nixon's happy place.
Yeah.
So
again, he'd go to the opening of an envelope. Yeah, sure. So why not?
So what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
Okay, and we'll get to what went wrong in a moment. But first, this.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans. Even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes, now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox, clean feels good.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here. Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault. A new series streaming now only on Peacock.
And we're back. Okay, folks.
All right.
Mr. Testa and I were just discussing Richard Nixon's first trip to Walt Disney World, which happened November 17th, 1973. Now, interesting, though, Len, more than 2 years previous, Nixon had been invited to the grand opening of the resort. And in fact, you were just talking about Jason Schultz. If you go to the Nixon Presidential Library and Museum, you can actually listen to the tapes that were made in the Oval Office back in September of 71, which is when Nixon, when talking with H.R. Haldeman, he's then chief of staff, Nixon wanted to go.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, look, we're in Alabama. How far is that from Orlando? We'll just fly down for the day, right? We could just stop by there.
But here's the thing. Now, mind you, what's funny about listening to these recordings is, well, first of all, Nixon keeps getting the name wrong of what the company's building down in Florida. He keeps calling it Disneyland, rather than Disney World. But he clearly wants to go. But the problem, Len, is the optics. All right, at the time that Disney World was supposed to be having its grand opening, and again, this is late October 1971, this is right when the Nixon administration is planning its last major combat operation in Vietnam that will involve U.S. ground forces. And in fact, right after that, Nixon is supposed to order the withdrawal of U.S. troops, while at the same time, in order to provide those same troops with the necessary cover for the withdrawal. They're going to be stepping up airstrikes on enemy targets. But it's a really delicate, tricky time for the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
If one aspect of this goes wrong, the campaign would collapse. And this is why Haldeman is telling Nixon is like, look, you do not want to be at the grand openings of Walt Disney World, if this goes south. I mean, how would it look to have the president down in Orlando standing next to Mickey Mouse and something horrible goes on, over in Vietnam just as we're beginning the withdrawal of U.S. troops. So that the president will look unfeeling, put his own priorities and pleasures and interests ahead of those of the American people. So Nixon, he sees the wisdom of what Haldeman is saying and opts out of attending the Walt Disney World grand opening. But
it killed him.
It did. But he still wanted to do, again, he was friendly with the Disney family. So, for example, he sent Roy O. Disney, and Walt's brother, a note, first of all, apologizing for not being able to attend. But he then sent a flag that had been flown over the White House that could then be unfurled at the Magic Kingdom as part of the festivities surrounding the opening of the resort. But all right, so anyway, it's now 2 years and 2 months later, November of 73, and Nixon is headed to Walt Disney World. Mind you, not to check out the Magic Kingdom, but to address the Associated Press at their annual convention, again being held up on the second floor of the Contemporary. And Nixon's hope is that if he appears forthright and honest as he stands there in front of those 400 newspaper editors, that he might now be able to tamp down the fires of Watergate, which are already threatening to consume his presidency. Nixon stands there up at the podium, again, the one on the hydraulic stage, Len, and spoke for more than an hour without notes.
Wow.
Yep. And by the way, obviously, everyone in the world wanted to hear what this guy was saying. So demand for the seats in the ballroom of the America was so great that day that, well, again, we talked about that closed circuit television system. A live feed of Nixon's speech was then sent into overflow rooms all over the second floor of the Contemporary, so that all of the other reporters who had just flown into town to listen to Nixon, speaking at the Associated Press's annual convention, but couldn't get into the ballroom, that they could hear it unfold in real time. And it would be nice to report that Nixon, again, hour plus speech without notes, turned this situation around, but it didn't. And in fact, the irony is that, all that we know out of that, event is the one soundbite of "I am not a crook."
Yeah, which he said on that day in Disney World, and that's where the line comes from. Wow.
There we go. And then 10 months later, Nixon resigns. That happens on August 8th, 1974, and he basically withdraws from public life for the next 5 years or so. But starting in the early 1980s, Nixon makes a concerted effort at rehabilitation. He wants to turn his reputation around, and the Disney parks will play a role in that. In fact, take, for example, what happened in May of 1982. Epcot Center is in its final phase of construction, and Nixon travels over from his home in Key Biscayne to visit the work site. And what's funny is, of course, the Imagineers, when they found out about this, like, well, we're taking him to the American Adventure, and we're definitely taking him to the China Pavilion.
Sure.
And Nixon is genuinely impressed by what he sees during this visit at Walt Disney World. And by the way, it was mostly restricted to the Epcot worksite because, to be honest, the Secret Service felt that they'd have better control there.
Right. Because there's no public. It's just construction work.
This is true. And, more to the point, everybody who came onto the site that day, they'd been able to vet and that sort of thing. Now, mind you, Nixon does do a hit and run over at the Magic Kingdom, gets a chance to eyeball the park. But he goes home to Key Biscayne and tells his wife, Pat, we really need to take our grandkids to Walt Disney World. And Len, it takes about 18 months to actually make this happen, largely because the Secret Service has to meet with the officials with Disney and go over every single aspect of the trip.
Sure. Where you're going to stay, where you're going to walk, where you're going to eat.
And in fact, that's the funniest part of the story is that where does Nixon stay? The Contemporary. Well, you would figure, the seed of, one of the things that helped take down his presidency, you think he'd want nothing to do with that hotel, but Nixon, it's close to the Magic.
Imagine how much he liked that hotel otherwise. That it's like, well, yeah, I mean, I said something that's going to haunt me for the rest of my life, but man, the bathrooms are spacious.
There we go.
Like the water pressure is just amazing. So,
All right. So it's February of 84, and cast members have been vetted. Individual attractions have been inspected top to gun for safety, and Richard and his extended family, we're talking about wife Pat, his daughters Julie and Tricia, and all of the Nixon grandchildren. But I know you'd love this part. Joining them, Len, is Nixon's longtime pal Bebe Rebozo. It's just one of these things. Why not? Okay, but they spend 3 days, experiencing the place, and and what's amazing, Len, is if you poke at this at all. First of all, there are images of Nixon interacting with Figment and Dreamfinder.
I'm sure Jason has these. Yeah.
The ones that kill me is that the family evidently went to Pioneer Hall and experienced a performance of the Hoop-Dee-Doo Revue. And I would pay good money to see the Nixons there with their giant, tin thing of ribs and, just
exactly with the ribs and the gingham tablecloth. And
there we go. It's Six Bits coming by the table and doing horrible bear puns.
So the kids got to love it, though.
No.
The grandkids.
No, that's it exactly. And and Nixon dearly loved playing grandfather at Disney World. I mean, he rode the Prince Charming Regal Carousel with the kids. He went on Small World, and by the way, Nixon thanked his hosts and then effectively handed the PR thing that department, something that they've used since. This is what Nixon basically said about his time at Walt Disney World. He said, "I've been to 80 countries in my time, but you really haven't seen the world till you've seen Walt Disney World."
What a great quote.
It is a great quote. Now, mind you, the folks out in Anaheim, I'm not saying they're jealous, Len.
They're competitive. It's a healthy competitive relationship. Sibling rivalry, yeah.
That's exactly. But, they are quick to point out that, well, yeah, he went to your resort. But if we're talking numbers, he's been to Disneyland more often, hands down. In fact, and this is probably Mr. Schultz who dug this out. This is info that the Nixon Presidential Library and Museum readily makes available, that Richard M. Nixon is considered the foremost Disney fan out of any U.S. president. As a native of Orange County, he still holds the record for the most visits to Disneyland as by any U.S. president. And by the way, again, if you ever manage to find yourself out in Southern California, again, this is Yorba Linda, just 18 minutes away, 19 miles, open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily, only closed on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Great fun. But to sort of put a button on the story, we talked about that flag that Nixon had sent to Walt Disney World back in October of 71 to then be flown at the park as part of Disney World's grand opening ceremonies. Nearly 50 years later, Len, it returned to Walt Disney World. The archives had dug out this 9 by 5 foot banner. They had it sent down to Florida, where it was put on display. Where else? In the lobby of the Hall of Presidents. Downside, Len, only for one day.
Wow.
That's what a treasure it is considered. And in fact, I want to say Becky Klein, the head of the archive, flew down with it, put it on display, went to get it, the day was over. So we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, as we wrap up the story today, just want to offer special thanks to Gabriel Rousson and Bethany Bemis. A lot of the research in today's story came from work that these two ladies had done previously. So thanks to them for helping out with prepping this feature.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. That's a great story, Jim. I didn't know a lot of that.
Well, again, Nixon, flawed but fascinating guy.
Yeah, and a theme park fan like the rest of us. That's always good. All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia. where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our latest show is on Disney's corporate lounges, and there's a link in the show notes. There's also a link to Jim Scholl's Disney Journey channel on YouTube, our other partner for Disney Unpacked. On next week's show, Jim looks at the future of Disney's 3D films, including in the parks and theaters. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. Also, we're both on The Case 4 with Chris Cox, a new podcast where Chris, Jim, and I debate one theme park topic at a time. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be serving Chotka Hershey's famous buttery onion and sour cream recipe at Pierogi Palooza on November 22nd, 2025 at the Blair County Convention Center. That's on Convention Center Drive in beautiful downtown Altoona, Pennsylvania. While Eric and David are doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.
What I bought? A new Blink Mini 2K Plus smart security camera. What I got? 2K clarity sharp enough to see every detail of home when I'm away. Plus audio like I'm in the room, not with my bestie traveling to another city. Plus easy plug-in setup to install faster than skipping through podcast ads. But you'd never skip ads, right? Plus, I got all of this for just $49.99. Blink Mini 2K Plus. Mini camera, max performance. Shop now at amazon.com/blink.